Welcome to Decades of Horror, the classic era.
Are we not
men? We are Devo.
D-E-V-O.
Is episode 98, recorded April 18th, 2021.
Gruesome Magazine.
That's always such a chore.
It was perfect.
It might be, it might sound a lot better on a recording than it did live because we all sounded lagged to each other, probably. The only one that came in unison was Chad. We are Devo. I am your host, Jeff Mohr. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss the monsters, psychos, villains, and spirits that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history. We're part of the Gruesome Magazine family of video podcasts, which includes Horror News Radio, the Gruesome Magazine podcast, Horror Heroes, and Droids,
Horror Heroes.
and the 3 Decades of Horror podcast, us, the 1970s and the 1980s. Please subscribe to, comment, and like on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel. You can also listen to on audio streaming apps where you can subscribe to Gruesome Magazine and Horror News Radio. All right. But we have exciting new news. As we ramp up, we're almost to episode 100. We're on episode 98. We have some new information. Decades of Horror, the Classic Era, is partnering with the Classic Sci-Fi Movie Channel. The channel launch is in mid-April 2021 and will now include video episodes of the Classic Era.
Ooh.
It's very cool.
It is very cool.
Awesome.
It will be available on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, as well as their online website. And across all OTT platforms, which I'm told is over the top, as well as mobile, tablet,
it's not
and
that over the
desktop.
top. It's just a regular platform.
The website is www. No, there's no W. The website is classicscifichannel.com, and we will put that link in the notes for the show. Some of the films available are Attack of the Mushroom People, Curse of the Faceless Man, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, The Leech Woman, The Mole People, 20 Million Miles to Earth, 4D Man, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, Frankenstein's Daughter, and more.
As in Jeff Mohr.
I'm not. I will be on there. I will.
More than you can handle.
I will be on there.
A live feed.
A
Nice.
lifetime
With me.
of Jeff Mohr.
With me this week. Oh God. With me this week
Am I fired?
are my incredible co-ghosts.
Please.
We do have
fire me.
co-ghosts. Whitney Collazo, an accomplished artist, makeup artist, and writer. Whitney, how are you?
I'm good. Not as hairy as some of these dudes that we're about to talk about in this movie, but I'm good.
I know.
Oh.
I know.
For a minute there, I thought you were just talking about us, guy.
I mean,
I
we
shaved
did
so
this.
you guys wouldn't confuse me with it.
Yeah, we
Also
all
with
said,
us
are we
is-
not men?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And the answer would be no.
No.
Also with us is Chad Hunt, co-host on Decades of Horror, the 1970s and the 1980s, a film producer and director with Freak Havoc Productions, and a comic book artist and writer. Chad, how are you? How are you?
Happy to be here, Jeff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Low key chat.
Now you're
Yes.
happy. Also with us is Daphne, the awesome, stupendous costume maker, and someone who is likable as hell, except when she's always laughing at Chad's jokes. They're disrupting everything. No, Daphne, how are you? Good to have you here.
I can always dance.
Pump up the volume.
Dance.
How are you, Daphne?
I'm really good. I've been looking forward to talking to you guys today.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
looking forward to it.
This is a great movie. Also with us is Joseph Perry, contributing writer to Gruesome Magazine and contributing writer to The Scariest Things When It Was Cool, Horror Fuel, Ghastly Grinning websites, Phantom of the Movies. That's not anymore, right? God, I keep
But
doing
you
that.
can still get back issues.
And
Get
Hard
back
Rock
issues.
Aficionado.
Of Phantom of the Movies, Videoscope Magazine, the Drive-In Asylum Zine, and Diabolique Magazine, and co-host of the Uphill Both Ways podcast.
And the
How are you,
ability
Joseph?
to hold his face in one position for extended periods of time.
That's
Frozen.
true.
Says that true? Well, it's good to have us all here today for this
Yeah.
interesting film. On this podcast, we give some basic details of the film we're covering, followed by each of our first impressions, and then we move into a general discussion of whatever trips our triggers, hopefully relating to the film, although we haven't got there yet. The topic this week is Island of Lost Souls from 1932, directed by Earl C. Kenton, written by Waldemar Young, Philip Wiley, from an H.G. Wells novels from 1896. Cast includes Charles Lawton, Bela Lugosi, Richard Arlen, Kathleen Burke, and Lila Hyams. Production company is Paramount. Filming locations: the Paramount Ranch, Santa Catalina Island in the Channel Islands off California, and Paramount Studios in Hollywood. Filming dates: 5 weeks through October and early November of 1932. The release date, I don't know, sometime in December. I saw December 2nd as a preview. I saw December 24th as a release date. I saw December 26th as a release date. And I think this would have actually been a wonderful family film to see right before Christmas
Why not?
in 1932. The budget is $300,000. And the domestic box office is estimated at 1.6 million in the ultimatemovieranking.com. Synopsis: a mad doctor conducts ghastly genetic experiments on a remote island in the South Seas, much to the fear and disgust of the shipwrecked sailor who finds himself trapped there. So this is kind of the standard poster, and you can kind of even tell by the poster. You know, we call these the pre-code days, but there actually was still a code then. They just didn't enforce it. They left it up to individual countries and local states that they knew would censor it. Was until 1934, I think, where the Breen office went into effect, and that's when stuff got nasty. So
I'll tell you what's nasty. That guy standing behind her in the weeds looking at her.
I know.
Yeah.
Pre-code.
Interesting one. I kind of like, I pulled this other poster up just because I really like the artwork on it.
Oh, that's nice.
And maybe,
I love that art.
maybe,
Mhm.
and Whitney, can you say that properly? Is that Spanish? I think.
Let me read it. Okay, La Isla de las Almas Perdidas.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it-
a really
is
nice
that-
poster.
And actually much better than the other one. That's just beautiful artwork.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh, this is nice too. La Mujer Pantera.
La Mujer Pantera.
The
Yep.
Panther Woman.
A great
Oh,
Lucha Libre
Panther Woman.
star.
Since you were
All right.
talking about pre-code, I was
Um,
seeing something about the Supreme Court decision that says that movies are not free speech. Was that directly related to how the code was enforced? Do you guys know? I mean, since it kind of existed before, but it was like,
Well, so Joseph, maybe you could help here too. I know that you've talked about that before, but anybody else want to jump in? But basically, movies like this created a big brouhaha big disruption in the culture of the time. And they went, hey, wait a minute, we got this code, we need to start enforcing it. So they put a real anal retentive, power hungry, I think, religious guy in charge of it. And he like said, yeah, this is the way it's going to be. So in fact, they tried to re-release this movie in 1935, and he said, nope.
Huh. Okay.
And then they tried to re-release it in 1941, and he said, nope. They had to make 14 cuts or something to get his approval. Plus a lot of other countries, and there were states that banned it even, in 1932. So
I think evolution was a big thing back then that put the kibosh on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you have live vivisection. There was like an anti-vivisection league kind of thing back then.
Even back then, people were getting vivisected left and right.
I know.
Somebody had to step in and do something.
Well, I get this kind of mixed up with the novel because Wells, when he wrote the novel, that was a thing. That's kind of what prompted him to do it, was the anti-vivisectionist. And I didn't really know this until now, but that's like dissecting people only alive or animals. It could be animals, but it's alive, obviously, I guess, but not to me for all these years. Anyway,
no formaldehyde smell in Dr. Moreau's house of pain.
Yeah, we're not putting anybody out. So, and then we also have, sort of, we're trying to turn animals into men. Oh, we can't do that because men are the humans are the chosen ones. And then we're also going to try to encourage interspecies sex, right? We're going to have crossbreeding between. So it was terrible. It was an affront to people's senses, I guess.
So was the Marlon Brando version.
Yeah, well, that. Oh, so this is a strange one in that most of the titles match, but I still like the German one is Insel der Verlorenen Seelen, which is Isle of Lost Souls. We have about a dozen taglines, and Chad's going to read all of them, I'm sure.
Wow.
No. Let's just start off with a few, Chad.
Okay. Oops, I went down too far here. Okay. Terror stalked a brush-choked island where men who were animals sought the girl who was all human! Exclamation mark.
But wait. Well, that's kind of true, I guess. Okay.
Well, she ended up being all human. He defied nature, creating men and women from animals, only to find that he could not control them. I don't know. He was beating the cotton stuffing out of a lot of them with that whip. He was doing pretty good for a while.
He was.
Yeah.
The Panther Woman. There was danger in her smile, death in her embrace. Never happened.
Well, it did.
It did kind of happen at the end with the creepy guy watching from the bushes.
It wasn't that kind of embrace, was it?
No.
He deserved it. He deserved it. The Panther Woman lured men on only to destroy them, body and soul.
That didn't happen.
No. I was like, what movie am I watching when I read that tagline?
Well, she didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay. Beasts into men, a panther into a woman. Okay, this sounds like the back of a romance novel here. Your wildest fancies, your weirdest dreams, never conceived so strange a romance.
They don't know my wildest fancies.
I know. I mean, boy, and I got some fancies.
And we don't want to know.
Oh, boy.
A sensational picture from the book that shocked a thrill-saturated world. I don't understand thrill-saturated.
That would mean they wouldn't need to.
They wouldn't need to be shocked or sensationalized if they were already thrill-saturated because they would be full of thrills.
But that's how shocking the book was. It shocked those who
Even-
are already saturated, even those.
So shock's the next level up from thrill.
Exactly.
I wish I'd have got that in that
Because those
education
1890s
that I always
crazy
wanted to.
times.
Mhm. It's like postmodern.
Hmm.
Kind of pre-post.
Charles Lawton as Dr. Billy Bob Moreau, the half-crazed scientist.
I have a problem with half crazed.
Yeah, he was
at
like
least
all the way
three
He was
through.
all crazy. He was
Yeah.
all crazy.
The needles in the
This-
red.
this
on
big-
crazy guy.
This big long one, Chad, I think is like the narration in the trailer or something, that came across as cap
Yeah,
letters.
things like that.
Um,
I'm not reading that.
Really?
changes wild beasts into creatures whose strangely human appearance and action hide raging animal passions. It's great stuff, but it's like a paragraph long. Anyway, Showmanship Plus.
Or I can read it like a
I like
marketer.
Showmanship Plus.
Showmanship Plus. I didn't see that.
It begins where Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde left off. A weird, fantastic adventure with a mad doctor who discovers how to turn animals into humans, but not how to control them. On a lonely
Oops.
tropical island, he practices his black art, changes wild beasts into creatures whose strangely human appearance and action hide raging animal passions.
Thank you, Google
Something
File.
brand new in picture plots. Picture plots with a specially selected cast that will bring thrills to an already saturated audience and joy to exhibitors. Showmanship Plus.
That's crazy. It's insane.
All you need is a confetti.
Oh goodness. Yes, confetti.
Also, buy your matches
All
with
right.
Crazy Eddie.
Oh wait, do the shrinking horror one.
Shrieking horror. Shrieking horror that will scare you to panic point. The panic point's the beach down south.
No, that's just what I was thinking. That's down.
It's
down
like
the road
10
a
miles
piece.
down the Pacific
Yeah.
Coast Highway.
Yeah.
Just next
All
to
right,
Park
well, let's-
Unknown.
Let's get to first impressions.
Yeah,
here.
I'm done with that.
Okay. Mr. Billy Bob Moreau picked this film. So, when did you first see this, and what were your first impressions?
I saw it back in the 80s, and it was a gray market bootleg convention VHS tape that was very bad print, and I had already seen the other later incarnations of this story, and wasn't necessarily impressed with either one of those, especially the Marlon Brando one with Val Kilmer, and but the Burt Lancaster one I thought was good, was okay, but this one really blew me away, because even though I was a younger kid or whatever, I was kind of well aware of what you could get away with in movies as per decade, as the year the movie was, and the stuff that was touched on in the film. I was like, how did they get away with this? How are they getting away with this? I remember thinking, and it was just it was filmed better. I like the actors a lot better, the story a lot better. It was a horror film, even though the H.G. Wells story, it was sort of horror-ish, adventure horror-ish type. But this played out as a very straightforward horror film, especially Charles Lawton's performance was just creepy and just made me want to punch him in his fat face, throughout the whole movie. But he did a really good job of being creepy. So he's like one of the, I always thought of him when people talk about horror movie villains and stuff like that. He's like right up there with me. I'm also a fan of his movie, that hopefully we'll do one day, that he directed. But anyway, get back to this. It's always been one that I enjoy watching. It's an hour and 10 minutes. Just a very well done movie. It's very well acted, I thought. Very well acted, even by the secondary characters. It had some great 1930s fight scenes where it looks like they're really getting punched, and you just hear this, you don't hear the you hear it really sounds like you're punching a side of beef or something when they get punched back then. And so those are very cool to me too. And the special effects and the makeup effects, especially for the time, I just found very, very, very cool. And they stand up to this day as that camera is panning through and it's showing some of those creatures in the background that you can only see their eyes and these like overhanging foreheads and stuff like that. And it just, it's creepy. And, but this is one of my favorite horror movies ever made. And I don't think it's ever been topped, in the other, unless I'm missing one that we don't know about or I don't know about. But it's one of my favorite horror films and I love watching it. So that's why I picked it.
Nice. And a good pick it is. Let's go to Daphne next for her first impressions. Had you seen this before?
I hadn't seen it before, and I loved it. It's way up there on my list too. I ended up getting the Criterion because I thought I gotta watch this whenever I want. I liked it a lot. I thought all the acting was great. The pacing was amazing. It was over like in a second. I didn't feel like anything was slow. The cinematography was breathtaking. It was amazing, the cinematography. I feel like this is a really important movie for lots of reasons. It made me think of so many things. It made me think of colonialism. It made me think of nature, science, arrogance, cruelty, compassion, sex. It's just really, I feel like it's a really important and good movie, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah. Well, we've been wanting to do that for a while, but we could never find a streaming source, and I guess we finally did. So, Whitney, how about you? Had you seen this before? And,
I haven't, but I have heard of it, and I've wanted to see it, and I'm glad I finally got to. No, again, yes, Chad. The first thing that comes to my mind automatically about this film is the makeup effects. Like that. That's some wild, like literally wild stuff. The hair and everything on these characters, these actors, the men, and then, as much as I enjoyed, yes, I like how Daphne presented the things that you would see in nature, and versus the things of someone that even says himself, the character we'll talk about later is this doctor, and he mentioned something about how does it feel to be like a god, playing God, and he plays with the elements of tampering with animal life and human life and just mixing that kind of thing together. It's really when you really get into depth in your mind about these kinds of things, it can be it's definite a horror mindset of everything that it kind of goes back to things like Frankenstein, those kinds of films. But this was a fun film to watch. The scenes with the nature and the island and the characters are really entertaining. This one was a good one. It was fun. But I guess we'll move on to the next perspective.
Alrighty. Yeah, we'll have to come back to the special effects because it was pretty impressive. Young Master Perry.
Yes.
What did you think of this film today, sir?
First saw this film probably on its first home video release, whenever that was, and then late 80s or early 90s, I'm guessing. I'd heard of it before, but what really spurred me on to seek it out was, I'm pretty sure I read about it in one of Danny Perry's cult movies books, probably the first one, but I'm not exactly sure. And he talked about everything my Grue-Crew mates have mentioned, and keyed in on Charles Lawton's really creepy performance. And it struck me very much the first time I saw it. I've watched it here and there over the years since then, and was thrilled to revisit it. It has retained a lot of its shock value, obviously, from what we've already mentioned. The only difference is if there was a remake this year or this decade or whatever, it would focus more on the physical horror. But what I really love are horror films that suggest something and keep it either off camera or in the viewer's mind. And this certainly did that with a couple of deaths, where I believe there was one where somebody was killed with bushes in front. So even though the film went there and certain topics and everything, it still held back on showing some of the on-screen violence. But I think another reason for that was so that the impact of the finale, which didn't exactly show anything explicit, but it really hinted heavily at what was at the comeuppance of Dr. Moreau. Keeping things off camera a lot before that built that up to be an even more shocking climax, I do believe. And I'll keep it short because I think everybody so far has really set up what's so wonderful about this film, and wonderful in a weird way, in a macabre way. And there are so many reasons to see it, as you've already heard, but Charles Lawton's performance alone is another reason to see this. His facial expressions are amazing. He's so conniving and duplicitous, and you can never take anything he says at face value or for being an honest remark. And that scene where he's showing his laboratory to the the man who is our kind of main protagonist, and he lays back on the table, kind of smirking and arrogant. That kind of sums up his character in one small shot. The madness behind it and the perverseness behind it. And that's another great word for this film, I think, is perverse, even to this day.
Yeah,
he definitely is. So I don't know how long ago it was, but then I did one of those things where I bought the Criterion tube, and just so viewers know too, that twice a year you can get Criterion stuff for 50% off. Criterion usually has a sale in the fall. Yeah, so if you get their mailing list, they'll tell you when that is, and you'll have a couple days to order anything they have for 50% off. And then Barnes and Noble does the same thing in usually like late winter, maybe spring. So there's a couple times you can get pretty good deals on that stuff, and that's what I have done, is like keep a list, and then when they do that, I go bonkers. But anyway, this is good. And to tell you the truth, that on this particular one, the Blu-ray, the quality isn't great. Of the picture, it isn't like because the original isn't all that good. So I don't know. I love this movie just because it's all just so bizarre, and the Moreau character is so bizarre, and the things he says, and his body language, and that one, that scene you were talking about, Joseph, where he lays across the table. If it was a woman, you'd say it was a seductive pose, but
I think he was trying to be, right?
Yeah, it could be. I don't know what is he doing here. And the way he's kind of working through things, and you kind of figure out, things are a little backwards because people think Parker, the Arlen, the character played by Richard Arlen, he first thinks that Moreau is turning humans into animals, but at a certain point he figures out that it's the other way around, which is a big shocker. And there's the cinematography. There's just so good about this movie. So we can go on and talk about that. So what else do we want to talk about here? Let's talk about the makeup. I didn't put any information in the show notes about it because I learned about it later on. So
I learned that one of the makeup artists shares the first name of the actor Charles. Like Charles, I'm not sure if I can say his last name right. It's Gamora or Jamora.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah. And I looked at some of his background, and he was uncredited for the 10 Commandments, and that just doesn't surprise me that he did anything on that one, because I'm thinking beard work, I'm thinking hair. When you think of 10 Commandments, you think obviously of Vincent Price's role, and you think of the hair and all the great stuff going on there. And then it was Wally Westmore did makeup on this one too. I didn't get to look at all of his background and his film work, but I just thought it was really neat to see that this other person had shared the same name with one of the actors. I'm like, Charles. Okay, cool.
I loved how the makeup was still very human. Like I really like kind of like what you were talking about with things are not necessarily crazy fancy over the top, but it's more disturbing to me that it's still very human, especially with the subject matter in this movie. I just felt like it was way creepier, and I felt like there was more depth to it instead of just these wacky, crazy, over the top makeups that maybe you'd see later.
And the way a lot of it too was the way the makeup was lit.
Right.
Made it even more creepier. There's a lot of scenes here where characters' eyes would just flash light or reflect light. Even Moreau when he was blowing out the candles at one point. But some of like I brought out before, when the camera was panning through the Beastmen, and there was some scary looking stuff in there. That you were like, there's no animal that could have came from. This looks too scary and too weird. But it was lit in such a way that you could almost only see the eyes and the forehead, maybe, and the top of the head on some of them. And some of those that aren't very well lit are scary looking. And some of the makeup's very subtle, a little bit more subtle in some places. So it was they did a great job with the makeup effects, and very effective. Go ahead, Whitney.
I'm sorry, but before I lose this thought, I was thinking about when you're saying some of it was even some of the stuff that you feel like you couldn't see. There's some things that you may want to revisit or rewind or whatever, because I did notice, like, there was you can do camera tricks on things even if it's not so up close or even from afar. And I noticed that there was a scene where you had the shot of the feet of some of these guys, and there was like there was like a I don't know if it looked like it could be a goat leg or something next to a human leg. I'm like,
the hoof.
That hoof. Yeah, I'm like, what is going on here? There's definitely some strange things going on here. I might have to look back on later.
Yes, I
well, and that's when the whole sorry, Joseph, but that's when the whole crew of them was heading after Moreau, and they were
Yeah.
chanting part beast, part man
Yes,
things,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
half. Yeah.
I was wondering if that foot was makeup or real,
Right.
because this was at a time right around Freaks, right? Todd Browning's film,
Yeah.
and there may have been some people with physical disabilities in this film too, but I wanted to mention the pan shot that Chad brought up. I felt it was way too fast. Okay, but that may have been deliberate to hide
Mhm.
any flaws in makeup, but I think the makeup was so good that it's simply too fast. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was deliberate or obviously it was deliberate. It was a director's choice, but I felt that it was how can I say this? It would have been creepy if it was slower and we would have seen more makeup detail, more of the man beasts or beast men.
Hmm.
Panning so quickly would have hidden any flaws that the filmmakers felt might have shown. And but yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
I did appreciate how they were coming. There were some scenes where they got up really close when they were coming after Moreau, and they were just coming right up to the, such an intimate view, right with the camera. You got to see some stuff there, which I appreciated.
Yeah. And one of the points of the movie is if these creatures are left alone, they start to revert back to their beast form.
Right.
So, for a long time, I was wondering if he did such a good job with Loda.
Yeah.
Why do these other guys look so? But that's a point I picked up on later viewings, that these guys have just been left sort of to their own devices and haven't been worked on by Moreau and starting to revert back and get more of these characteristics of beasts. And so that kind of fits along the film too. The more the film goes along, the more savage they become and more animalistic they start to turn again.
Well, I definitely got the impression that Moreau just kind of tossed aside every failure.
Right.
So why, unless they were such a failure that they would run the machine, but I just kind of felt like it just didn't matter. He just moved on to the next two. Or
he's more focused on Lotta and what his intentions were with her by that time. Yeah.
Exhibit A.
The guy that you mentioned, not Gamora, but Wally Westmore. This guy's got 463 credits in IMDb, and in every single kind of movie you can imagine. War of the Worlds, Vertigo, Double Indemnity, Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, so westerns, war movies, comedy, some Jerry Lewis movies, horror movies. He did Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde right before this one. So it's
yeah, with that name, he had to have had so much going. Yeah.
Who's the guy that was on Creature, Chad? Bud Westmore?
Westmore. Well, that's what people say.
Oh, I know, but
I hate Bud Westmore. No,
I know, but I'm trying to see if he had any.
If he's related.
Oh, he was. He's a brother.
I don't know.
He's a brother.
Yeah.
Right. I just assumed, okay, there's that name. He's a makeup artist.
But yeah, this is amazing stuff. And he, as I'm trying to see where he became, most of his credits list him as makeup supervisor. I'm all the way back to like the 40s now. So yeah.
And it's not surprising to see, obviously, for the time and for this film especially in particular, to see a Westmore behind this, and especially dealing with hair. So, I mean, the layers and everything, like we've said, like up close or even afar, you could see how much like it was just so intense with some of the layers and everything going on with these actors and how they looked.
Yeah, that's just somebody I'd like to read a little bit more about.
Mhm.
The other side of that,
movies were still in the early stages, and
Oh,
these
yeah.
kind of effects were in the early stages. So it's not too surprising that
No.
you had a couple of guys related to each other.
yeah.
too.
Right.
Oh, he did Alice in Wonderland right after this, also. You know, the mask and stuff like that. Charles Gamora was well known for gorilla suits,
I saw that.
according
We
to
had
some
one
of
in here that was really cool.
that was him. He made the suit
Okay.
and he wore it apparently. He also was the gorilla in Murders at the Rue Morgue.
Oh wow.
Were you gonna say something, Chad?
Nice gorilla suit for the time, I thought.
Yeah.
For the time, most of the time you get those Three Stooges gorilla suits that,
Yeah.
that just were not convincing whatsoever. But that was a pretty good one, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Cyclops, he was a makeup artist for that. So anyway, yeah, just another guy that I'm sure people that are really into makeup stuff know who this guy is, but I was impressed and to learn about him.
Whitney, was some of the makeup kind of mask work?
I'm sorry, continue your question.
Oh, I was going to say, because it seemed like it was sometimes like a part of the face, just part of the face, like the eyes and maybe the brow, which I thought looked really good. It wasn't like really obvious, but I wondered if that's what was going on, because it still maintained a lot of human characteristics, but yet like the eyes had a lot of bags, or the brows were really thick and heavy.
Yeah, I think, well, from my own, I was trying to get a good look at some of them. Going to, what's the name of the servant? I lost his name, but
Maling.
Okay, Maling. Okay, so
Mhm.
I know with his nose, like, I felt like that blended a lot into his actual appearance. I could see that. And then there were other characters, some background characters, where you could see that there had to have been some forehead pieces, because when you take a good look at some of these features and you see like everything is a little bit more normal towards the jawline, but things are more they're just popping out at the eyes. Those look more like they could be forehead pieces from wax to maybe playing with foam and rubber kind of pieces at the time. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw a lot of forehead appliance stuff being played with.
I thought that was it just looked great. I thought it looked great.
I liked it a lot too.
So since we're talking about the makeup a little bit, I just throw a little piece of trivia in here. The two guys that played, I lost their names now, Gola and was it Uran?
Uran, yeah.
That were kind of the goons, right? The one that played, I'm lost his name again, Gola. His name was Harry Akezian, I'm sorry. And he wrestled. He was a professional wrestler, and he wrestled under the names The Terrible Turk and Alibaba.
Oh, wow.
And was champion in 1936.
Nice.
Wasn't Uran also a wrestler? Or
yes,
he was. Yeah,
he was. Hans Steinke, and his wrestling name was the German Oak.
I could see that.
That's
That's
pretty
perfect.
epic.
He was great. He had a like a, I don't know what you call that, like an ogling glare.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a woman around, that just
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
There was
Jeez.
a lot of that going on.
There was. Well, let's. What do you guys think about the direction? I mean, Earl C. Kenton, who also did Ghost of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and House of Frankenstein, And the really important stuff he did was like 26 episodes of The Texan.
Oh.
So, okay, Roy Calhoun reference. All right. So, what about the direction in this film?
I think just great direction. We had so many incredibly framed shots. We had great pans, to reveal something. So his choice of shots was pretty much perfect for this film. And the pacing, as Daphne mentioned, is solid. Never a dull moment, basically. And it runs at a steady, super fast 70-minute clip. So those are some of the highlights for me.
Some of those shots too of Charles Lawton, as he's like creeping on Parker and Lota, and he's like behind this structure, and he's looking through, and he's like, and you can get arrested for that in the States. So it's just super creepy and just dark and atmospheric and the whole scene, like Joseph brought up earlier, of him laying back on that table, and it was all about the lighting for me. The lighting did a great deal of the menace and macabre going on in this film, because it seems like when Parker's in the film, or Lota, or any of the other characters, very, very well lit. But whenever Moreau is involved, there's a darker, it's lit darker. He's and that's the impression I got anyway. And so and some of those shots are just set up so well, where you have go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say how Moreau steps in and out of the dark a lot too. Or he watches and then, and comes in and does something and watches too. And that scene that you were talking about with him blowing out the candles, I thought that was really, really cool.
That was such a cool shot. And the eyes light up and glow as the lights in the room go down. Just great stuff.
I also really appreciated in the beginning when he was like walking with Parker and introducing all of his experiments. I thought like just explaining all of that was really great too. Really moved stuff along.
Definitely. For me, I like to say something. I liked the crowd control, literally and figuratively, because of especially with seeing Moreau. And you have that corral of those men when they're introduced, and then he has his whip, and he's trying to show establish where he's at with these characters, and just showing to Parker how he handles these situations. It was that, I think, with establishing some of these scenes, yes, showing his experiments, and then showing that sort of crowd control for the director to show these scenes and make that like a prominent, powerful thing. That got me a little bit too. Like that's, totally. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just that sense of power, seeing that crowd control, like that director's pivoting onto Moreau towards those characters. That's pretty intense.
Well, how he was standing high above all of the people too. And I mean, power just pulses throughout this whole movie. And you're right, how the director chose to show it and the cinematographer lit it. I feel like there's so much subtle stuff going on here that it's just so good. It's so good.
It's a beautiful film. It really is.
Yeah.
Right. And Daphne, going along with the subtlety in this film, there's the scene where they're basically setting up one of the Beastmen, to go into Parker's I guess fiance, or they're not married yet, right?
Right. Fiance, I think fiance, yeah.
Okay. Into her bedroom to do, terrible, horrible, awful things that the assistant doesn't approve of. But there's that scene where Moreau is kind of not explaining, but hinting at things that are going to happen. And he side eyes his assistant. And at the very end of that shot, he does an extremely subtle wink. I had to rewind it to make sure
Oh,
that I
wow.
actually saw the wink.
Yes,
Yes.
it's just very so quick.
Mhm. Right, right.
Creepy.
Oh,
he
he's
was-
just
he
so
was
giddy.
creepy.
He's so giddy with everything that
Yes.
Well, there's one scene where he's just going,
Oh, I know.
Uh-huh.
and I was going, ew, you little.
Yeah.
Well, part of that, you mentioned the cinematography, Daphne, and I think a couple other people. Carl Struess was the cinematographer, and he had an Oscar for Sunrise, a silent film with F.W. Murnau,
Oh, yeah.
and was also nominated for 3 other films, one of which was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde the year before, 1931. So this guy knew what he was doing, and I think that had a lot to do with some of the shots. You know, there's that shot. There's like this one boom shot where they're like tracking in the jungle as these people are walking through the jungle, and then it comes to that clearing, and then it goes up in the air and looks down at the animals in the village. You know, when they first see the village, I thought that was impressive for 1932 or for any time, I guess, but
Right.
it was really standout for this. So yeah, a lot of good people on this. So you know, we've talked about these writers before. I was a big H.G. Wells fan when I was a kid. I read all those. There's like 5 or 6 classic science fiction novels that he wrote that have all been made into movies, I think. And so this was stuff I always look for. But the writers of the screenplay are this Valdemar Young and Philip Wiley. We've talked about Philip Wiley not too long ago, I think.
Yeah. Philip Wiley he wrote one of my favorite things. He wrote a book called Gladiator, he's pretty much the first superhero ever.
Okay.
'Cause, yeah, I think they based Doc Savage, Superman, those characters on that character.
Have you
So
seen that movie?
Doc Savage?
No, the Gladiator.
I've seen it, parts of it, a long time ago.
Okay.
But I don't even know if it's available to watch it.
Yeah, I don't know if it is or not. But he also wrote the uncredited for The Invisible Man, and I thought we did one recently.
We did do one where we talked about him, but I can't remember what it was either.
Yeah, and I don't see it. And of course, he wrote When Worlds Collide, was a novel that he wrote. Oh, Murder in the Zoo.
Was that it? Was that it?
Yeah, Murders in the Zoo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which has some other connections here. So Charles Lawton, we've been talking about him like crazy. The single creepiest time for me was when he says, maybe we don't need Parker after all.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's
And I'm like,
spinning
oh
his keys on the key ring or something.
Yeah.
He's doing
Yeah,
something
yeah.
with his- yeah.
He's gonna get good old Uran to rape his Ruth, I guess.
Yeah.
Always thinking.
Such a scheme.
Yes.
Well, you get
And he
the
does it-
feeling that he's been there. What do you say, 11 years?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so who knows? I mean, what his mind has gone through all this whole time. As they used to say back then, he's a madman. You know.
Yep.
And he's just become so mad. I mean, all these weird ideas, and but yet he's a genius. So that's where his his mind is going in all these weird places.
Yeah, he just looks like he had a heck of a lot of fun playing this part.
Yeah.
and he is off the wall. I think some people in the reviews, well, I think most of the reviews commended his performance, but I think it turned off some people too. So anybody recognize? Go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say all the good makeup and stuff with the hair and stuff in this movie, and they gave him that little tiny mustache that was flipped up on one end over here.
Well, I think that was actually his idea. What did he say? I think they said he got that idea from was it a barber or something, or a dentist? Maybe it was.
I think it was his dentist. Yeah, he was visiting. Yeah.
Well, I could swear a couple of times when he would smile, it looked like the glue had come loose on the one side.
Oh, probably. No, he was incredible. We've talked a lot about him already. Is there anything else we want to say about him other than, we've covered him in The Old Dark House already.
Mm-hmm.
And Chad mentioned his sole role as a director in Night of the Hunter, which I have no doubt we will do.
That's Night of the Hunter is one of my favorite movies ever made. And it's just a shame that he didn't get to direct more movies than that. But that's such a great movie.
But there's also Mutiny on the Bounty is a real famous one for him. And I don't know, Witness for the Prosecution.
One of my favorite scenes of his, it was when Parker finally punched him out, and how he just kind of flew back and down in such an undignified, kind of floppy way.
Yeah.
He just kind of went down and just kind of got up and stuffed his fists in his pockets and looking for Loda, but it was just like, it was so undignified. And so it must.
Yeah, this is one of the
first, like a real fight scene.
Yeah. Like he went down. Yeah.
This is like the third or maybe fourth film that he appeared in the U.S. The way they describe it, some places I see third, I saw second someplace, and then they put in qualifiers like leading role or So how do you decide who's got the leading role? He's obviously a leading role in this one, but he was insane. And in fact, apparently the director got really into this too because. According to the commentary on the Criterion from Gregory Manx, the director even wore a white suit like some of the time because he was so excited about.
I was going to wear one for this podcast, but everybody said, "Hey, you going to cook us some chicken later?" Like Colonel Sanders or something. So I didn't wear it.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah, you can't win them all.
You should have asked. Anybody seen Richard Arlen in anything else? I mean, I thought he did a great job, and I'm surprised I just haven't seen him in that much.
Yeah, he was really good too. I feel like all the actors were really good, but yeah, he was really good too. And they made it sound like he did a bunch of movies. That lasted in the system for a long time.
Yeah, he did. Started in silent films. So yeah, I don't know. It's somebody I'll be keeping an eye out for. He was at least from my viewpoint, he was a very handsome guy, and he did a real good job acting on this. I thought, which makes it surprising to me that he wasn't have more or more well-known roles, I guess. But the guy had, 180 credits. So, Lila, pronounce that? Would you say Lila or Leela? Lila Hyams?
Layla Hyams?
Layla. She plays Ruth, but you know what else she was in?
Freaks.
Yes. So a couple of big ones right then. Of course, we have Bela Lugosi as Sayer of the Law. I thought he was awesome.
Yes.
I loved his over dramatic stuff. I thought fit perfectly for the guy who was part animal. That anyway. I don't know if Chad liked him or not. I thought he was great.
Oh, I love Bela. I was just laughing at the we do not spill the blood.
He was perfect. He
That's
was
great.
perfect. We are not men.
Yeah.
The crowd shouts things. We are not beasts. So anyway,
But this whip hurts.
I will forever think that he's a far better actor than he's usually given credit for.
I agree.
Maybe because of his accent, I don't know. But the films that we've done that he's in, I've loved him.
I also
We've
thought he
done
did a
it.
good job kind of capturing some sort of like prophet character that would be in that role as the sayer.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And in that kind of over the top theatrical kind of controlling. I thought he brought that in too really well.
Yeah.
It's just no matter what he's in, he's always very expressive with his face, and his eyes are so piercing. That's just the signature thing in his overall look, is just how piercing his eyes are, even if it's kind of milky looking in one more than the other.
Yeah.
What is the law?
Shut up, Bela.
Well, I'll tell you what,
you
those
talk,
guys.
you get beaten with a whip.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Go
the
back
whip.
to your tent.
The whip. Was that whip awesome? I mean, I love that whip. And then in that one scene where they're coming after him and he's trying to fight him back, there's a bunch of quick shots where it shows the whip like, curling around somebody's head and
The next.
I kept waiting for the shot where Three
There's
Stooges
one.
style the whip just smacks somebody's wig off in the
goes flying in the air. Whoa. Well, kind of like kind of like Devo's video for
Whip it.
Whip It.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, Joseph.
Oh, I felt there was some odd editing during those scenes that you just mentioned, Jeff, where the whip was around the throat, and the cuts or the edits or something was going on to where it looked like some frames were missing occasionally or something. I'm not sure.
Oh,
if
it could have been
Yeah.
to make that look like it was quicker, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
You think on purpose?
I'm
I
not
don't
sure,
know.
but it'd be interesting to.
I noticed that too, and I wondered if maybe they had done it in reverse or something. And yeah, I definitely
make
noticed there
sense.
was something funny there. Yeah, I noticed it too.
The reverse would make sense. That's great.
So we have to get to the Panther Woman,
Yes.
Kathleen Burke, and this is the one that we actually talked about quite a bit last summer when we did Murders at the Zoo, because she was in that. But they had this contest for the Panther Woman there was like 60,000 women that entered this contest. Yeah, that's insane. Now, the guy on the commentary, Greg Manx, and I believe him. He's on a lot of this stuff, and he knows a lot about cinematic history. He said they got down to the final four, and that it was not all that surprising to everybody that she won, because she was from Chicago, and Chicago had the most Paramount theaters of any town.
That's right.
Oh wow.
Back when the theaters, the studios owned the theaters, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I thought she was great. I thought she had the perfect feel for this.
Yeah.
She was great. She had this. Well, she definitely had the Panther movements but she also had this innocence in her too, that she was just being natural. Like she was just a natural cat doing what a cat does. And even being attracted to Parker, it just she seemed like a cat in her movements and her innocence and her curiosity. Yeah. I thought she was great.
I love the scene where she asked Parker, "Is this book going to make you leave?" Well, yes. Simple. She throws the book
Right,
into the
exactly.
Problem
Classic
solved.
cat jerk thing to do. Yeah,
love that. If it was
That was
sitting
a
on the
great-
counter, she would have batted it off.
That was a great shot too, in the with the reflection in the pool.
Yeah.
Where she
Yeah.
threw it in, you know?
yeah.
And even with just certain things with her learning, like he's telling her, "Oh, I'm in love with someone else," and she's like, "Love," but
Mhm.
it's like she's learning. She doesn't know these words, but
Yeah.
she's learning through expression and feeling. Like it's like you said, it's almost cat-like, and then she
Mhm.
kind of like pushes herself,
Mhm.
almost in that way that a cat would kind of like lean up into
Right.
something.
Yes,
So it
Mhm.
was,
and he strokes the back of her head,
Yeah.
yeah,
or,
He does-
or like
he
he's
does
scratching the
pet
back of
her.
her head or something.
Yeah.
He pets her. Yeah. Mhm.
I expected her to start purring. If I hadn't,
right.
and I don't think we
First
don't
he
know
pets her,
that she's
then
a
he kisses
Panther
her.
Woman. Then, right?
Not at that point. I don't
I mean-
think so.
No.
I'm sure if everybody knew about it because of the marketing and all the hubbub about the contest, but
And then
And then
that's her credit
not-
at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, right.
okay.
Doesn't need to give her
Yeah.
name, though.
right?
Yeah.
All right.
eventually we see her hands and you see those
Yeah.
claws. So
Mhm.
And I mean, it's I'm very forgiving on this, but I'm pretty sure the shot before that. Okay, we had the close up of her claw hands,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
before that, just before that, we didn't see that. And actually, they never showed them like that on her. Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
When
Right,
Moreau
right.
was checking, we never got a close shot.
Right.
right.
Yeah.
It seemed
Well, in
like a
fact,
one
he
and done
even-
thing.
He even rushes her over to the window so he can get her in
Right.
the sunlight between the bars.
Because his eyesight is bad from peeping so much.
Yeah.
Well, they always told you, don't read in the dark. It's bad for you.
Oh, poor.
Yeah, and don't Steve in the dark either.
Don't skeeve in the dark. So those are the main. I like the ship's captains. Both the ship's captains were pretty cool.
They were awesome.
Captain
Yeah.
Davies was Stanley Fields, and Donahue was Paul Hurst.
They were both so fun.
Yeah. That guy he throws him off the boat and says, "Well, what am I supposed to do with him? I don't care. Do what I did. Throw him off."
And
Well,
boy,
like
did
how
he
you-
throw him off.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
just gonna say,
yes.
Chad. It was like you're talking about with real fighting. It's like he picked him up, picked
Yeah.
him up.
Throw
That wasn't a. Did you rewind that or anything?
It was a dummy.
That,
It was a dummy when
Oh,
he
was
threw
it?
it off.
Yeah, but you're off. But he picked him up.
But boy, was that brutal.
Yeah. Smashed his back across the crate there.
Are you okay? Of course I am. I'm the hero of this movie.
Yeah. The
So what about
Just fell 30 feet on your back with some crates? How you feeling, buddy?
the second captain really predated Larry Miller, the act? If you guys know that comedian.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yes.
That's all I could think about the whole time.
He was
Sure,
kinda
I'm drunk. So what?
Larry Miller got his whole act from him, I'd say. So
Wouldn't that be the best thing ever if we
That
found that
would.
out?
Hey, that's some pretty good brandy you got there.
Oh, that's enough. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
yeah, right.
So there was the scene too towards the end when they come. I think they're the four of them are escaping, right? Parker and Loda and Captain Davies and Ruth. They come out the door and are running away from the wall, and they got these big shadows on the wall.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. And then
Yeah.
the beast, I think it's Uren, comes out to follow him, and that whole kind of chase scene was cool too. God, that's just when I think about that stuff. What about the first shot where Parker figures out what the hell is going on? Because he's on the ship with Montgomery, who's played by Arthur Hole, and Maling is there, and the doctor or the doctor, the Captain Donahue smacks Ling, right? And Parker then smacks the Davies, and then goes down to help Ling. And when he brushes the hair back, he sees the ear, which is pointed. And that, I don't know, I know they didn't have, or they didn't like foam rubber back then, right? That looked like all the individual hairs were planted, right? Didn't it?
Yeah, it seems
That's the way they did a lot of it back then.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, it's possible to do like wax sculpts and things like of that sort. Like foam rubber hasn't. I mean, it was more of an. It hasn't really been an established thing. But hair was always, there was always a way to take a wax sculpt and place it on the skin a certain way, or manipulating the hair to play it on things. But that definitely looked like something was sculpted a little bit with some hair attached.
So
on a different note, I thought it was interesting that they didn't write anything in the screenplay about Ruth being suspicious of Loda and Parker, because he paid a lot of attention to, we need to rescue Loda. Where is Loda? But Ruth never once said, what's going on with Loda? You know, why you and Loda?
Well, and it's actually kind of interesting because nobody says anything else about Loda. He says, "Where's Loda? We can't leave her behind," and nobody says anything.
Yeah.
Nobody goes, "Yeah, let's go. Or what are you talking about?" You know, I don't know.
But again, that's kind of trimming a bit off to make it meaner and leaner at 70 minutes. So why add the extra romance or jealousy angle in there?
Well, and we've talked about that before too. Is early after the silent films, a lot of times there wasn't much in terms of musical scores because they were afraid it would interfere with the dialogue, and this doesn't have. There's no music in this.
Just a cheerful end credits music, which was quite jarring from what we had just seen. But yeah, right. So I was going to say, Jeff, sometimes you ask me about the score, and I've said before, I'm not really a score guy. I don't really notice it that much. But I was waiting for this time to say, now I can comment on the score. But yeah, that was just in credits. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much going on. I mean,
yes.
It's hard to really get something like that to keep. Usually I would notice a little bit in some films, like when a score tries to set a tone, but I mean, there was so much going on. The pace was a great stand in all of it. I just thought, well, I mean, I didn't recall hearing much of a score either. So that's pretty neat.
They were like wrapping it up with this. Where's Donahue? He's dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's going to happen with Moreau? The building's burning. It's going to destroy everything.
Right.
Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Don't look.
It's like,
Don't look.
Yeah.
And then you had that fun final shot too, and don't look back.
Right.
Yeah.
So dramatic.
Yes.
Don't look back.
Yeah.
I did notice the quiet though, and I thought that it added to this kind of the creepiness of what was going on. Like when Uran was breaking into Ruth's place, and it was so quiet until you hear the bars start to turn. So I think it worked out really well that there was hardly any music. But yeah, the end credits is a little strange.
Well, yeah,
happy little music at the end.
Yes. Well, you also have to they don't want people crying as they left.
Right.
Yeah.
You also have to be able to hear the screams from the House of Pain. You know,
Oh man, those were good.
Asking that.
God, that was intense. That scene with the person on the table and the sounds coming out of that person was chilling.
So that's a lot of the stuff that was cut in other places, was anything that had anything to do with, quote unquote, vivisection or turning animals into people, or sex between the Panther Woman and all those things were cut, which would, make a pretty bizarre thing. And think about that. They were really trying to push the envelope right then. It's amazing how fast they got to that after the start of movies. They're and right at this same time period, we had movies like The Mummy, Mask of Fu Manchu, Mystery of the Wax Museum, King Kong, Freaks, The Old Dark House. Those are all like the second wave after Frankenstein and Dracula in 1931. And then this one, just like a year later, this one ends up being banned in Germany, Great Britain, Holland, Hungary, India, Italy, Latvia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Africa, and Tasmania.
That was something I thought was really cool about this movie too, and why I thought it's really important is some of the history like this, like the comment that you made about Paramount, in Chicago. And the fact that this movie was kind of really scandalous, but they wanted that. They wanted to get people in that, and
they
then
were
with
competing.
The code, they wanted to get
they are
people
competing with Universal in all these big money movies.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the vivisection scene should have been played more for comedy, like when Parker walks in and Moreau's screaming at "Get out! Get out!" And Parker could have been like, "Okay, God, the door was open. I want to walk in. God,
Can I help? You need a hand?
you're doing it wrong, by the way. You're supposed to cut from here."
Yeah, need a hand. I got two. So yeah, it was literally, it was pretty scandalous at the time for all those concepts. And even like, I think, I don't know. I mean, Layla Hyams, when she's undressing and Uran's, we know he's out there trying to sneak in, and she's, it was a fairly sexy thing. And this was at a time when, like the first Tarzan movie, which I think was right about this time, has a nude underwater scene with Jane swimming underwater. I'm like, what? I never knew that happened. Well, it was cut and wasn't available for years and years and years, So yeah, who knows how many different cuts of this were. Plus, it'd go to different states and different communities, and they would just cut chunks out of it. Yeah, we're not showing that, So who knows what people actually saw. Well, Joseph, I think we're pushing your time frame here, aren't we?
Oh,
You have a little more
right
time.
on the envelope.
Okay. So any final comments? Let's talk about let's go through and see if we have maybe favorite scenes. So Chad doesn't get time to think about it, but everybody else has time to think about it. Have a favorite scene for this? and final comments.
Okay, my favorite scene was when Parker first wandered into the Beastmen camp. I think that's such a beautiful, I don't know if it shot, overhead shot of him walking into that.
Yes.
And then all these weird guys just start coming out of the woodwork, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? That's always a highlight for me when I watch this movie, is that scene, because it's just so well done. So it's shot so well, and then the creepiness of it. Because at that point you're like, what in the hell is going on around here? And but that's got to be one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And it's just like I said, it's a great film. If you have not seen it, you can, it's easy to get a hold of now. It's easy to watch now. Do yourself a favor and watch it.
Yeah, Joseph, how about you?
Wow, it's nearly impossible to choose a favorite scene out of this film. But off the top of my head, I'm going to go with Moreau's denouement. because the payoff is really great, and it wraps everything up quite nicely, and we get to hear Moreau's screams as he is a victim in the house of pain. But ask me 5 minutes later and it's going to be a different scene. Anything with Lawton, I think, or anything with the beast men or men beasts. So, and I agree with Chad. If you haven't seen this before, run, don't walk, and catch this as soon as you can.
But not on all fours.
Right.
No.
Not on all fours. Have a vegan meal while you're watching it.
What is the law? Yes.
I guess my favorite scene is when Moreau is being so cruel to Lotta. I mean, I feel like his cruelty to her when he finds out that he feels like he failed because her beast is coming back. The beast always creeps back, and
Yes.
Just how he just treated her like nothing. And it's my favorite scene, not because I enjoy that, but because I feel like it portrays so much about the arrogance and looking at, like I said, this reminds me a lot about colonialism, and it's like this looking at this person as less than you, and I'm going to burn the beast out of them. I mean, that's such a part of our history of looking at people like they're less than and burning the beast out of it. And she was so good and so scared and crying, and he I just thought that was such a powerful scene. That's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, that's a great scene. Whitney, how about you?
Oh boy. So again, with trying to pick with, oh my gosh, I guess I'll have to say with what Daphne says is not because I thoroughly enjoyed this, but it was really Lauda's Lauda, I can't say her name right, but the Panther Woman, her tragedy, because it was quick, but it was profound, because we knew, like, it was pretty much established that she was fighting back a little bit. It was quick, but that was known that there were like some marks and some things going on in that fight back there. So I mean, she didn't. I mean, I don't know. I just like hearing a little bit about someone, even if they do go out, it's because they, even if they did struggle a little bit, they fought back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and she saved them. I mean, she made
Yes.
it possible for them she saved them. Her sacrifice, her killing them. Yeah.
Which showed her
To escape,
her complete humanity.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That she had really become human.
Right.
And
even though she was a beast, she did this, Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was great. She was captivating every time she was on the screen. I thought she was kind of the center of attention. I was going to say Joseph's final scene, because I just thought that was so well shot and so well. I mean, I literally got like goosebumps watching that. Look, we've seen a lot of videos of crowds, right, lately, attacking people, and that seemed real. That seemed really well done and real to me. But since Joseph took that, I guess I'm going to take the one where he says the little scene where Moreau says, I guess maybe we don't need Parker after all, because that gave me goosebumps too. I thought, now this guy, this is beyond science. Anyway, this really is a great movie and should go into, the archives, I guess, as one of the top horror movies of the time. I think Universal was pumping out so many of them that it's hard to argue with any of those, but this is really, really good film and disturbing, and handles some interesting subjects, especially for the time. I mean, we have our first, Panther Man kiss, I guess. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ew.
Even though.
Predating
Well,
the ape man kiss of Planet of the Apes.
a lot of times too, if I can just jab this in there, people think of the older movies from the 30s, 40s, and back in those. Oh, those aren't nearly as sophisticated as movies nowadays. This is a very sophisticated movie.
Yeah.
And its subject matter and the things that it touched upon in this film. And for that alone, Daphne, you were right. This is an important film. And it's one that should be in everybody's collection, and you should watch.
Yeah. Well, that pretty much wraps us up. Joseph, you got to run.
Gotta run.
We got a little bit of feedback. All right.
Okay.
Good to see
Thanks,
you, buddy.
Joseph. Good to see you, man.
Bye, Joseph.
Bye.
The
Take care.
next episode's for you. Don't miss the next episode.
It's
The
for
Golem.
me? Oh
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah.
All right. See you at the Golem. Bye, everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
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 Have a good one. Yeah, so just to remind everybody, we are Decades of Horror, the classic era, is partnering with the Classic Sci-Fi Movie Channel. The channel launch is scheduled for mid-April, so by the time this comes out, it should already be happening, and it will now include video episodes of Decades of Horror, the classic era. It'll be available on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, its online website, and across all OTT platforms, as well as mobile, tablet, and desktops. We'll have the link in the show notes later on, so please be sure to check that out. All right, we do have
a lot of access to a lot of movies that we can cover on here too.
Mm-hmm.
There is. We're excited about that. So we do have some feedback. First couple are from episode 94, Planet of the Vampires. From Chris M. He says, I don't know, Philly first here. I'm not sure what that means unless he's maybe he's from Philadelphia. He's a Philadelphia fan or something. I don't know. Maybe he likes Philly cheese. Philly's. Help me out. What am I trying to say?
Philly cheesesteak.
Philly cheesesteak.
That's what I was trying to say.
You're making me hungry.
And it probably means he's from Philly and he was the first to comment, maybe. Maybe.
Could be. One of the props on the set of the derelict spacecraft in Planet of the Vampires was a taillight from a 1950s American car. Well, it sure looked like it.
Wow. Yeah.
Do you remember that when they go onto the alien spaceship and see like their version of the space jockey?
Yeah.
Slumped over the table. There's like a weird thing there that looks like maybe it's a fin from a car with red light, white light, and I don't know. I should take a closer look at that, but I thought that when I saw it. So that's
Just looking
interesting.
at the structure of some of that stuff made me think of other vehicles and things.
Yeah.
So it's,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So
That is such a visually cool movie. And then also for Planet of the Vampires from Tammy Weirds. I appreciated how they paid attention to detail when the doors on the ship would close and we'd hear the vacuum lock sound. Also, the way one couldn't open the airlock door until the sensors touched the ground. The bridge was very interesting with that huge screen and the light tracking across it, which made that cool sound, and the enormous glass windows surrounded by bolts and the cool instrumentation. Those seats did not look very comfortable, though. They didn't. That didn't look like the kind of seat you wanted for month-long space travel. Prometheus copied the costumes from this movie, very similar. The derelict ship in Prometheus and the first alien look a lot like the derelict one in this movie. P.S. They should review Green Slime 1968. Yes,
Working on it.
we will. Are you sure you're not an alias for Doc Rotten, Tammy? But we will be doing Green Slime. We will be doing Green Slime, and sooner rather than later, I'm sure. And the last comment is on episode 95, Eyes Without a Face, from Tanya Taylor. Thank you for another wonderful and insightful broadcast. Listening to Decades of Horror feels like being with old friends.
The feels awesome.
This was one of my all-time favorites, and I'm pleased to see that you all enjoyed it as well. Thank you for bringing joy to my day. That is awesome. That is awesome.
It is. That's the best part about this is
Yeah.
that's why we ask for so much feedback, because it makes us feel good to make somebody bring an idiot like me can bring joy to somebody's day. How does that happen? But I'm glad it does.
I know.
And I really am. I enjoy hearing that so much, as I'm sure you guys do too.
Oh, Tanya, I know where you're coming from. Listening to these guys in the 70s and the 80s it's been awesome. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, same for me. I always used to listen to HNR back in the old days, and I would get really irritated if they didn't come out. You know, if they were like a day late and I had a drive for work on the day they were supposed to come out, I was going to listen to that. Anyway.
Same here. I was just somebody that loved listening to the show. And
yeah. And we have tried to be more consistent. And I think we have over the last like 6 to 9 months. We've kept pretty well to a schedule, at least for Decades of Horror. And I know Doc's trying to keep the rest of the stuff on schedule. So greatly appreciated. Tammy.
Thanks, Tanya. Tammy.
Yes, thank
Tanya. So much fun. That's it for this episode, but every 2 weeks we'll be focusing on a specific film released between 1920 and 1969. Next up is one chosen by Daphne, and I'd already spilled the beans. What are we watching next, Daphne?
The Golem.
Yes.
From that thing from Lord of the Rings?
20.
I'm not going to sit through 9 hours of Lord of the Rings. For any
all the special features, all of the outtakes,
all the commentary.
And you have to turn the volume off because it's a silent film. So this is our
I haven't seen it, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, really?
Nice.
It's very interesting. And the thing that I find appropriate is our second episode we ever did was a film Joseph picked called It with Roddy McDowell that featured a golem.
Golem.
And it has a lot of the same
it's based on
mythology in it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Now, we should probably talk about that a little bit because there's like a bajillion versions out there. I looked it up on like 4 different sources and they all had a different length. So,
okay.
Chad, you can pick the shortest one.
Whichever one has the fast forward feature.
The fast forward feature, okay. All right, there's plenty of ways to stay in touch.
Rock guy gets
please subscribe to our Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel. Leave comments, hit the alerts. You can also leave comments on our website or on our Facebook page, Gruesome Magazine's H&R and DOH podcast Facebook group, or just send emails to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com.
Or you can have jet airplanes fly over Jeff's house.
Yeah.
And honk their horns.
Skywriting works too.
Yeah.
Skywriting works too. Catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era. You know what? I have to stop. We joked about it at the beginning, and we haven't talked about it, but this film has so much history in music. It's amazing.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
It's
we didn't even
amazing.
talk about that. There's so much we could this movie. Oh, there goes Billy Bob.
Yeah. We're not going to, Chad. I'm just But I was impressed with how much Devo actually followed their thing, and from a tract from the 20s. All right, Catch us again here in
Yeah.
2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era, as only decades of horror can do it. Say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Gruesome Magazine.
Yes, now kiss her. Kiss her.
Oh no.